Welcome to the Super Profit Friends. 15 minutes long, because you're an entrepreneur and you've got a business to run.
Alright, and we're back with episode 13, Culture, Keeping the Job Enjoyable. Episode 13 of the Super Profit Friends SPF 15 podcast. Thank you guys again for joining us today. So, when we talk about culture and keeping the job enjoyable, Chris Lang, you want to throw out with to these guys what we mean by that?
Alright, well, what I think we mean, well, we're talking about employees essentially in that regard, keeping the job just enjoyable. So,
well phrased.
That's exactly what we're trying to talk about.
I mean, to keep employees happy, I mean, an employee is not going to stay if they're stressed out or if they're just not unhappy with the boss, if they don't share the boss's values. So if you're not implementing the correct values, if you're a hack, at least in my regard, if you're a hack and you do things wrong and you tell them to do things wrong and they know it's wrong, then they're going to be like, why am I working for this guy? This guy's a hack. Those things make a difference. In my industry, to keep an employee happy, you need to offer benefits. And a lot of them. They're to keep good guys, because it's very hard to get any type of licensed plumber, any type of licensed mechanic, like a pipe fitting mechanic, anything like that, because no one's going into the trades anymore. So it's very difficult to find a good technician. So if you do have a good technician, you need to really take care of them. I mean, my benefits, I pay my guys travel. I pay one of my guys I pay for his health insurance in full. Yeah, after 1 year, they get profit sharing. In this first year, if they finish jobs on time, I give them bonuses for each job. So I try to take care of them as much as I can, and they want to stay, and they obviously have.
Yes, that sounds like you're creating a culture of showing them that they're appreciated.
Exactly.
Because you're
That's
like,
a big one.
You're like, look, if we make this much money, you're getting a portion of it. So
Exactly.
Make sure you guys are doing your best to, because if you do your best, then we'll get more business because you're doing your best, and that means that you'll make more money from the profit sharing. I think that's a huge thing. If you can do profit sharing with your employees, 100% do it.
It's like a no-brainer.
At the core, that's kind of the goal of how you want to develop the culture of your team, right? You want them to recognize that any part of the team's benefits the rest of the team, and when that's constantly being reminded, when they're constantly being reminded of that, it gives you that morale boost to get your work done, because yes, I'm profiting from this, my team is profiting from this. We actually ran into some challenges with that in day job stuff. Two members were kind of fighting for percentages, and it was causing friction in how easily they could acquire the sale, because they weren't focusing on the right thing. So we approached it now, and instead of you guys fighting over these, why don't you just, every sale, you guys are both getting this portion. So any successes that you guys are having is a success for the whole team.
Exactly.
And it really lets them play on their strengths, because while one of the people in our office approaches with a very pepped up personality type that works for some people, that some people like to interact with. Some people want that kind of behind the scenes email with a lot of information. When can I schedule this for you, and it not be as hey, let's do this right now. And you really have to make sure that the culture that develops isn't one of this person upset me, so instead of addressing it, I'm going to go and tell this person about how that person that breeds the opposite of
toxic environment.
Yeah, that breeds the opposite of that culture of every part of the team's success is all of the team's success.
I think that's
crucial.
Yeah, basically that point that you're making. Actually, a good friend of mine has said this exact thing. Rising tide lifts all boats. So it's that same thing. If if you do well, if the business does well, then everybody who is in the business does well.
Yeah. And companies that don't do that, we recognize the flaw in that. Like, that's why everyone gets, pissed off at Jeff Bezos and Amazon, is because he's making so much money, and it's not the tide's not rising all the ships. Some of them have holes in them, and they're just getting drowned out in that, like,
sinking.
Yeah, it's not a good work environment. I have a couple friends that work at the Amazon distribution center. Yeah, and then they say that it's not great. So, but I don't want to knock Amazon. I still buy everything off Amazon, but it would be awesome if they received some of those packages.
I would buy more if their clientele
100%,
because that culture would be something that I would be proud to be
absolutely,
part of, as opposed to be like,
if their employees were happier, then I would be happier spending money there.
Yes, absolutely.
And I would definitely spend more.
Employee appreciation is a big one, and it also makes them feel like they're more attached to the company and less likely to leave. Because like now you have not only the benefits, like, not to sound like greasy, but it kind of locks them in a sense, but it makes them want to stay, and that's the biggest thing, especially with like profit sharing. They're getting a cut of like our profit. Like, a lot of companies don't do that, and that's a huge like incentive to stay. And it's a huge incentive for them to work harder. They make sure it gets done right, because it gets done right, then they're not getting callbacks, which take away from their profit sharing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like a no-brainer on our end, because it's on jobs that I don't even touch. I don't even pick up a tool. I just go there and make sure everything's going smoothly, make sure everything is in the right spot. They need to move something, they'll move it, coordinate things, and that's it. I bounce. So it's like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's had an experience working in a job where the culture was not great. I don't know about everybody else, but I've had the pleasure of working in a tiny office with like 8 people, and I've had the other different kind of pleasure of working in an office with almost 300 people. And then I used to work at Walmart, and I used to work at a flooring company, all kinds of different places. And the thing I remember about each job was my boss, the person who was my manager at that time, and how they treated me. Because how they treated me was a direct reflection of, or actually how I worked for them was a direct reflection of how they treated me. So in every job I've ever had, I did my absolute best, and therefore I was, generally speaking, seen as, quote unquote, the star of that space. Because my managers appreciated me, I worked harder for them, because I wanted to see them happy, right? I always worked hard to make them happy. I worked at this one job, and I was not appreciated by my manager, and because of that, after like 3 months of doing my best and this manager still not appreciating me, I literally just gave up, and I just started going there for the paycheck, and I stopped pushing. I stopped pushing to be better. I stopped helping do the things that I knew that they would want done, because they wouldn't care either way.
There's no point.
Yeah, so I stopped doing that, and that's why. And it's one of those things that I learned from them, from that experience versus the experience of when I worked at Walmart as a counterpoint. Some management at Walmart was not great. My manager, I happened to get super lucky, and he was awesome. And the one thing I'll say is that as a leader, as a manager, as a business owner who has employees, the best thing that you can do is talk to your employees every single time you walk by them. Right? At least a hello, at least a how's it going, and not just like a hey, how's it going, and keep walking, but literally like stop for a second and ask how things are, ask what they did that weekend. Do something, and you don't have to go to the same people all the time. In fact, it's better if you spread it out, because again, like we talked about yesterday in the last week in our podcast about authenticity, you show your employees that you genuinely care about them and their happiness in your business, and they're going to work harder for you because they want to see you happy, because they can tell that you want them to be happy. and you all work together to create that culture of helping one another to make sure that everyone's life is going smoothly. You're so quiet.
I'm just listening. I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't have any employees, but I have definitely been an employee of many different companies and businesses. And for one, I am an employee at Amp Academy.
Is your boss a nice guy?
He's all right. He's all right. No, and I think you don't want to just hire anyone. There is a super vetting process if you're going to work for Amp Academy, because he wants everyone that works at Amp Academy to have the same mindset and mentality as he does. So we're all just an extension of him, and we're doing what he wants the company, the business to represent. And since we're all in the same kind of mindset, we all get along. I mean, I know everyone at AMP, that, like, we don't have a problem with each other at all. We all just are friends, and we're just I don't know how to put it, we're just living for AMP Academy, no. But I mean, that makes it an enjoyable place to work. I mean,
it does, and a part of that does go on you as the boss, because you're responsible for hiring these people, and you're also responsible for putting people together. So obviously you don't want to put like two different mindset like people together, and they're gonna clash. Unless you can have one of them like improve another one, it's a whole different ball game. But for the most part, they're gonna clash, and then you're not gonna get anything done. Productivity goes down the tube, and now they're just stressed. No one looks forward to work. And one of the guys one of the electricians I work with on site, he had an employee he hired, a young kid, and the kid just like was miserable. He was like didn't really care about the work, and he even told me, he's like, Chris, like, I don't even want to go to work anymore. Like, when I wake up, I really don't want to go to work because of this kid. Like, well, man, you gotta do something about that. Either straighten out his attitude, or you gotta talk to him. And he did end up talking to him, and the kid ended up leaving. But it's right. But he's a lot happier though. But like, these are things like
to change the situation.
Exactly. You gotta like. This is like your employees. No, you're choosing these people to work for you, so you gotta choose wisely, and how you set them up and how you put them together is gonna make a big difference.
So we can get into a lot of details and different ways to hire, and we will get into that at some point. Obviously, Walter is very versed in DISC personality types. So when he hires, he usually has his employees kind of do this personality test and see where their strengths and weaknesses are, so that way he can put them in the job that makes the most sense for them. I am not opposed to that method, but I do think that there's a general mindset, there's a general personality type. So for instance, if somebody is not outgoing, then working at Amp Academy is not the job for them. If they don't like talking to people and smiling and laughing and engaging, hanging out, teaching, they just don't belong in Amp Academy. If they can't smile while they're doing their job, then they don't belong here. And then there's obviously, they have to be a role model because they're working with kids, right? That's a huge thing, and it can't be a fake thing. Like, it has to be genuine.
If they're not willing to learn what you have to offer as a mentor and a boss.
Especially kids, right. Too. Kids can, like, I swear, they can see the authenticity. They really can. So if you're, like, faking it, they will pick up on it.
Yeah, so that's the thing that's fascinating about children, is as we grow up, as we become adults, we actually become way more blinded to the things, to people's emotions, to feelings. When we look at people, a lot of times we don't see what's really going on, but kids are so in tune with that. They're just so much closer to it because it's a natural thing for them. Because when, like, facial expressions are not a learned thing in most cases. Facial expressions are not a learned thing in most cases. Most of it is natural. You will do the same thing when you feel a certain emotion. And and that's true across cultures. Sadness and happiness. If you're blind, you still smile and you still frown. Like, it's a natural thing, even though you've never seen anyone else smile or frown before. That's what your body does. And kids are super, super in tune with that, because they're so much closer to that natural part where they're born and that's all they had. They don't have experience. They have instinct. So they can absolutely tell. But, go ahead.
I was just going to agree. And to, like, bring it back to the culture with this, like, early instinct, you want people to feel safe, right? You want people to feel safe in their decision making and their general. Was that too quiet?
Yeah, you're too quiet.
You want people to feel safe in their decision making as well as the environment that they're in. They want to be able to trust the rest of the people in their pack, in their tribe, whatever you want to call it. And that's going to show into your product as well. Like, you have your culture amongst your staff, which may be less, professionally presented than your culture that you deliver your clients.
Makes sense.
Because you joke with your staff. You're less, you're behind the scenes, but
It's just important.
but that your relationship with your staff is going to read in your body language in your staff. If somebody sees you talking and they're like, "Oh, I bet that guy's the manager," it's probably because you're, like, maybe being too forward or, like, heavy-handed in an approach. Whereas if people are like, "Oh, those guys look like coworkers," awesome. If you're somebody's boss and somebody sees you talking to, like, an intern and they're like, "Oh, look at those coworkers," you're doing well.
Your job great.
Yeah,
So long as it's like a respectful conversation that you're having. This intern is not, like, tossing mail around
Within reason.
But to me, like,
What up, boss?
but, like, if it looks like you're having a good time at work while you're working, you're going to have a good time at work while you're working, I guess.
But, really quick, this kind of hit me. It's almost like teachers, right? When we were in school, right? Who thought that teachers, like, slept at school, right? A lot of people, kids think that, dude. I mean, I
thought they
didn't.
just lived there.
Yeah, dude. It's true. Like, obviously, we understand, like, they don't live there, but we can't picture teachers doing things outside of school. So that's why, like, kids be like, "Oh, they don't sleep in for the summer." It's almost the same principle with you. Almost the same
They
principle.
hibernate.
Yeah.
That's it. It's almost the same principle with you and your employees. Like, if they just see you strictly in a work environment, then that's one thing. But, like, I don't know, you need to show the human side of you too, that you can joke around. So I think it is important to take them out. Like appreciation dinners and stuff like that, because they can see the human side of you, and you can also have conversations about things that aren't work, because that makes a difference too.
Yeah.
Even like, so, and we're already past time, so I'm going to do these two quick things just to not to add on to what Chris said and to add on to what Zach said, in reverse order. Tarantino that. So Chris, what you were saying is, like, let them see you in a
Human
place
life.
outside of work, right? You can accomplish that same thing even just in a morning meeting. Like, if you have a meeting and you're in the middle of the meeting, you're like, "Oh my god, that reminds me of this thing that happened this weekend," and you just tell a quick story of when you were not at work, when you were living a normal life like your employees, and, like, people are going to relate to stories that you've told. And if they've never experienced that, then they're still going to find it funny if you thought it was funny. You just gotta be careful with appropriateness and things. But like, be looser, have more fun with your employees, and we got to do this real quick. The camera's about to shut off. But the last thing is with what Zach said about having to trust one another, building a culture of trust around, like, with your employees. It's super, super important. And one of the things that you can do, and I highly recommend, is team building workshops of some kind. If you can create and facilitate them on your own within your business, do that. If you aren't creative enough to do that, or you don't think you're creative enough to do that, there are literally team building places that will go out and do workshops. And actually, Agent Alchemist,
Amp Academy. I'm assuming you do team building.
Yeah, I was going to say Agent Alchemist brought some of his people to Amp Academy for team building, for a team building workshop, and he ended up putting a video together for it. So, not that I'm trying to sell it, but it is an option if y'all feel like it.
Sanctum Road Simulations also offers team building.
Yeah.
All right, the camera's about to shut off. I'm surprised
all right,
it hasn't already.
We are going to end this episode
It
now.
might have already
So
shut
thank you
off.
guys for hanging out with us for episode 13 of the Super Profit Friends podcast. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff that I
Don't do
haven't
any
been
of that.
saying in
Don't
the
do any
past
of
ones.
Remember how you
X
do
out of this
anything.
window right
That's how you
now.
do everything.
Close program. Never listen again. Just kidding. That's fake culture.
Make sure you guys are creating a good culture for your employees and for your customers, and it will be appreciated by all. Thank you again, and we will see you guys on episode 14.
Bye.